tell us really where the idea for Coachtopia came from.
Yes. So, at Coach and at Tapestry more generally, we had been working for many years.
And Tapestry, just to remind everybody, Tapestry is the umbrella company that owns Coach.
That's right. We had been working for many years behind our commitment to improve the sustainability of our operations, investing in improving and mitigating our impacts across our end-to-end value chain. So transitioning to 100% renewable energy and recycled packaging and improving the sustainability of our materials and committing to traceability, all of that. And as part of that, we had also launched Coach Reloved, which is an ecosystem of programs that are designed to give our products a second life. So the Take Back program, which is launched all across the world, with programs that give them a second life, from repair, refurbishment, upcrafting, remaking, recycling.
So if I wanted to bring an old Coach bag that I had lying around, I could bring it in and say, listen, can you just make it feel more modern?
Well, we're really focused in Coach Reloved on keeping products in circulation and use at their highest value. And for Coach, we started with actually the most challenging part of that problem, which is damaged and unrepairable products, which you can't even donate or use. And so we focus on keeping products at their highest value. So if they're in good use, and just require minor repairs, we will repair them, refurbish them, make them like new, and resell them. If they have non-functional damages, so imagine a bag that has a huge scratch across the front. It's perfectly good, works as a bag, but nobody wants to buy it. We will ingeniously upcraft it using hand painting, embellishments, whip stitching, patchwork to hide those flaws, but turn it into a one-of-a-kind product. If it's damaged and unrepairable, we will actually take it apart into its component materials and make new products out of it. But there's a few things that we learned through this journey of significant investment around sustainability at Coach. One, despite all the efforts to mitigate our impact and improve the sustainability of our operations, so hard, so critical, but not sufficient. Because fundamentally, we need to address the core challenge of fashion, which is that it is a linear and unsustainable system. And we had to face head on the realization that Coach is part of that linear, unsustainable system contributing to climate change. And therefore, the only way to truly transform our impact was to rethink the end-to-end system, to go beyond process or products, step outside the linear system, and think about how we can reimagine it in a circular one. And you can't do that by picking off bits and improving them. You have to think with a systems mindset. The other thing that we learned from Coach Reloved, we have now given a second life to more than 25,000 products. The way we design and construct products rooted in traditional luxury craftsmanship makes circularity at scale extraordinarily labor-intensive, challenging, if not impossible to truly scale. And so if we are to envision a world where circularity is the core and not, a marginal part of the business, then we have to design and start from the very outset for circularity. We have to design thinking that these products will come back to us, and we need scalable solutions for keeping them in use and giving them a second life. So it was those realizations that made us realize that the only way we were to truly transform our impact was to create something that was designed from the outset for circularity. And that's why we launched Coachtopia as a separate startup sub-brand.
Well, you heard Ziad saying earlier that he thought it was the company of the future. So it sounds jargon heavy, some of what you've said. Can you explain to us sort of, when you say you sort of had to think through the systems of it and the linear nature of fashion, how is Coachtopia different? Tell us how it starts. I mean, take us on the journey from the beginning of the first design to when I can purchase it in store.
And that's a really great question, because circularity itself has become quite an industry buzzword. And I think, the more and more it's misused, sort of loses its value. So it's really important to us when we were launching this that we defined what we meant by circularity. So our consumers know when we say circular, exactly what it means. So we developed a set of made circular design principles, and there's 3 principles. So the first is we craft with recycled, repurposed, or renewable materials in order to minimize the creation of new virgin raw materials, which accounts for over 38% of fashion's greenhouse gas uses. And for us, we're starting with the problems in our backyard, and we're starting by making with waste. Taking the waste we generate as a brand at Coach and using our creativity to turn that waste, to reconsider it as a valuable raw material and turn that into beautiful new products. The second core principle...
Okay, so what kind of waste is that?
Yeah, so we're a leather brand, so we're starting with leather waste. And there's two really important sources of leather waste. One is at our suppliers on the production cutting room floor. So if you imagine a hide, and you cut all of the bag patterns out of that hide, no matter how efficient you are left with a lot of scrap. All the stringy little bits in between the parts, all the parts at the end that are uneven, that may have loose grain, that aren't quite big enough. They may have, insect marks, they may have defects, or they may just be too small. And all of that across the industry, from high to low, typically goes to landfill. And the thing about it is that it is still the same quality leather, right, as the parts we've cut out, but it's really challenging to use. It's small, it's unpredictable, it's unevenly sized, it may have defect, it may be inconsistent. And so the challenge of that is we asked all our suppliers to stop sending it to landfill, to start collecting, sorting, which we have to sort according to the original leather quality and colors and all of that for purposes of classification and transparency. And then we started prototyping ways to be able to use that waste. So that's one big stream. The other big stream of waste is at the tanneries. So this is after leather is tanned, before it is dyed or allocated to brands. It's called wet blue. All the skins are, again, trimmed, right? The uneven parts, the yucky part, there's a lot that's trimmed in that. And all of that also typically goes to landfill. So we are also taking that and using those scraps as input to our Coachtopia leather, which is a leather made of recycled leather scrap at the tannery phase. So we are doing that. And then we're tackling other sources of waste. So we're tackling the plastic waste. We have our distribution centers and our supply chain, turning those into products. So sort of one by one, we're tackling those. But we started with the problem of leather because Coach is a leather, it's a brand that is a leather house. And then the second key principle, so that's sort of, if you think about like a linear system, right? Take, make waste, you extract natural resources from the earth. You expend a lot of energy, water, chemicals, emit a ton of greenhouse gases, making stuff, and then 85% ends up in landfill. So, right, that's what makes it linear and unsustainable. We're solving for that first part.
Did you just say 85% of it ends in landfill? Yes. That's an extraordinary statistic.
Yes. And the fact is consumption has increased 400% over the last 20 years, and utilization has decreased 50%. So we're making more and more for things that last shorter and shorter time. So it is a vicious cycle. But we're solving for that first part. Rather than creating new stuff, right? We're repurposing the vast amount of stuff that already exists, right? Using our creativity and craft to do that. Our second principle is designing for multiple lives, which is the challenge I spoke to you about in the first place that we learned from Coach Reloved. That if we are to scale circularity, you have to design for circularity, meaning you have to design things that can be more easily repaired, disassembled, unmade, remade, et cetera. You have to think about how materials come together to allow end-of-life recycling. So just as one easy example, if you look at your handbag, a lot of you may see, or your bag, that the handles are sandwiched in between the shell and the lining, right? They're sandwiched. You will never see the back of hardware. The back of hardware on any attachment will be sandwiched between the shell and the lining, and then it will be, combined, glued, riveted, whatever, stitched, edge painted, all of that. Which means when that handle, the first thing to wear in a bag, is worn out and needs to be repaired, we have to take apart the entire bag in order to replace it, which requires a significant amount of highly skilled labor and time and cost, right? Now imagine if instead of sandwiching the hardware and the handles between the lining, you had them top applied, you had screw applied, you had removable screws so that when those things came back for repair, it only took minutes to take it apart. The reason we don't do it today is it's considered unrefined to show the back of hardware, right? It's not luxury, but we're challenging those notions, right? And so we've made those things a design code in Coachtopia so that our products, and actually it was funny because when we first were working with our suppliers, we challenged them to take apart every Coachtopia product. And they told us we're the first brand that instead of asking them to make stuff, asked them to take it apart because we wanted to know where is it hard to take it apart. That's one example. I mean, there's so many examples of the learnings on what makes it challenging to give products a second life. And then the third principle is scaling circular pathways. So we have to make sure that we will take back every single product from Coachtopia, regardless of age or condition, but that we already know what we're going to do with it when it comes back. Like we have a scalable pathway for those products to stay in use, circulation, or to be reimagined for second life. So those are the three principles.
Okay, super interesting. And of course, you've still got the sort of bigger issue of you've still got Coach up there, but at least now you're beginning to absorb all the sort of, as you say, the waste and the extraordinary amount of waste. I'm not sure that people understand quite how much waste fashion produces. I mean, how is it going? You launched in April of this year. What's the reaction from customers been?
I mean, it's been phenomenal, which hopefully some of you have seen it and engaged. Ziad and Jude Consulting have been incredible partners and helping us engage our Gen Z communities. But we, and I think the way we engaged our Gen Z was also a part of its success, because we think, we always think about the what and the how and the why, and the what is our circular craft, the principles I just talked about, but the how is equally as important to us. And it's powered by community. So since the earliest days, when Coachtopia was just like a nugget in our brain, before we even named it, we had engaged a growing group of Gen Z across all walks of life: designers, climate activists, journalists, filmmakers, entrepreneurs, just fashion enthusiasts, people who cared. And we've been pressure testing and involving them, co-creating with them at every step. And not only getting their feedback and perspectives, but also using Coachtopia as a platform for change. So, we are working with them. Designers designed our first graphics. They're designing upcycling drops. They're the talent behind the camera, in front of the camera. They're helping us storytell. They're pressure testing our commitments. And we've also worked on building platforms to invest in talent, like circular design scholarships, a Coachtopia Catalyst Fund to catalyze emerging sustainability nonprofits led by our Gen Z community. So we're really thinking of this as this holistic community. And then, of course, it was important. I mean, Coachtopia products just look fun and cool. They're on trend. And they're part of this more hopeful vision.
So do you think that, and this, I guess, is a final question, but do you think, if we come back, well, we will be back here in 3 years' time, if the planet hasn't burned down. Do you think that there is a vision here where Coachtopia can be scooping up all the waste from other fashion companies? I mean, for example, Tapestry, now you're a part of a group with Michael Kors. Obviously, they use a lot of leather. Is there an option for Coachtopia to lead the way in fashion now and have other people come to the table?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, I just wanted to clarify that. So Coachtopia it's a separate sub-brand. It's Discovery Lab. We made it a separate startup so we could think radically about rethinking the system and ways of working, pioneering circularity. But the goal is for Coach to become circular. So the learnings, we took a lot of learning from Coach. There's a continuous feedback loop. As we develop learning and scalable processes, that will feed back into Coach, and Coachtopia will move on to tackle additional problems. So the whole purpose is eventually to move Coach and overall the industry. So it won't be necessarily that Coachtopia is taking all the waste, but that opportunities for brands, including Coach, to think about this sort of symbiotic ecosystem and how they use their own waste will become more a regular practice. Plus, we're working on ways to design out waste in the first place. So how do you design to minimize the waste in the first place? So hopefully you'll see more of that coming into Coach, and you'll see Coachtopia continuing to think about how we sort of tackle the problems we face today.
Thank you for what you are doing. And I hope everybody has a chance to go and visit Coach. Where's the nearest Coachtopia store?
Well, we have one store in Soho, North America, but 4 more launching on Friday, which is our Coach House flagship on Fifth Avenue, one in Dadeland, Miami, in Chicago, and the Grove in Los Angeles. We also have a couple in the UK, and we're launching in Japan later this month. So if you're ever traveling to Japan, reach out to me. I'll let you know where the stores are. And then China later next year as well.
So what you're really saying is after people have had cocktails tonight, they should stagger off to the Coachtopia store and spend as much as you possibly can, because you can feel good about it. All right, Joon Silverstein, thank you very much.
Thank you so
indeed.
much.